The movie kicks off with an eerily mysterious scene. A guy is performing a strange ritual with the photo of a girl lying before him. He is murmuring something and blood drips down on the picture. Before long, another man barges in, wielding an electric saw. He ties up the first man and attacks him with his menacing weapon. The man being attacked groans in pain while his blood and guts are splattered all over. The framed picture of the same girl lies nearby and it also gets drenched in blood. Meanwhile, nearby, a strange sofa rests. The attacker gives it a single meaningful glance. The scene shifts and we see three curious souls venturing into a garage. The group consists of one man and two women. They enter the garage and are immediately repelled by the dreaded stench inside. Nevertheless, they still come in and start exploring the dark place. One of the women comes across a skull with a candle over it. She touches the object and immediately red liquid tints her finger. Ignoring this, she moves forward and turns on the light. In this room, they stumble upon the same sofa we saw earlier. Seeing this, she calls her companions and they come to witness the sofa with a note bearing the name Francesca. The scene shifts to a local club where we see a beautiful Francesca immersed in dance practice. As the performance ends, she is approached by two detectives named Bob Gravy and Rossin Grape. The detectives introduce themselves and ask to meet Francesca for some questioning. Francesca's friend Maxi, who is her manager as well, also arrives at the scene and thinks that the detectives want to book a gig with her. Maxi immediately extends her invitation to do business together, but soon finds out the real nature of their visit. The detectives want to ask questions about their missing friend Federico Olsen. Maxi, the overly enthusiastic one, pipes in asking if he slaughtered someone. A nice way to remember one's missing friend indeed. The detectives pause and then ask them to sit down before proceeding further. Once settled down, the detectives reveal the grim discovery of Federico's remains, prompting a discussion. Turns out, the remains were found by a dog and they identified him as Federico. The poor man's body was badly and trashed around. Francesca looks sad but Maxi seems unfazed. They reveal how the man was downright obsessed with Francesca, which led them to file a restraining order against the man. This happened 2 years ago and after that they have not met the man since. Shortly after, the women excuse themselves and leave after saying that they are going to have furniture delivered today. Bob gives Francesca his card since they might need to question her again. On the other side, the group is busy carrying out the sofa. It is covered in chains. As they push it out, one of the girls accidentally has her fingers stuck in the sofa. She screams and barely manages to pull out her hand. Horrified, they all look at her badly injured fingers. The man asks them to go out and take care of her injured hand while he pulls out the damned sofa. As they leave, he looks at the sofa and a foreboding sense of dream creeps up on him. Sometimes later, the man finally delivers the sofa at the address. As he arrives at Maxi's place, he is greeted by her grandfather who is perplexed by the name Francesca. He tells the man that there is no one named Francesca here. The man goes to make a call to find the correct address, leading to an unexpected twist. In the meantime, the old man lays eyes on the sofa and finds the note having blood on it. When he asks, the man tells him how it almost chopped off his mate's fingers. Curious and entranced, the man comes forth and puts his hands over the dreaded thing. All of a sudden, a bizarre sensation overcomes him, triggering haunting visions from the past. He sees people carrying out rituals and a strange woman running around. The man finds himself inside a strange forest where he sees a girl screaming and running from something. The old man collapses on the floor and is luckily saved by the delivery guy in time. As Maxi drops Francesca home, they encounter her boyfriend TJ seated on the mysterious sofa. Maxi looks fed up with the guy and asks Francesca why she even is with the guy. She even goes as far as calling the man gay. Francesca does not say much, just that since he is not so clingy, that is why she likes him. Seems like the poor girl is fed up with obsessive boyfriends. Maxi leaves and TJ helps his girlfriend in taking the sofa upstairs. As he sets the sofa, he is ready to leave. Francesca is visibly upset, mostly after hearing about Federico's demise. She insists for TJ to stay home, but despite her concerns he decides to go out with his friends since he's already got prior plans. After TJ leaves, Francesca decides to go take a shower. Meanwhile, on the other side, Maxi's grandfather grapples with the bizarre incident. Once alone, he confides in his girlfriend. He tells her how he saw a dybbuk and how a helpless girl who was probably in danger was running through a forest. His girlfriend ultimately connects it to a profound realization about his ancestry. She tells him how he also has the same mysterious gift of visions like his father. Despite the significance of this revelation, the old man seems apprehensive about what it means for him. Back at home, Francesca finishes her shower and, while drying off, she catches a distant thudding sound. With her heart on her sleeve, she creeps forward to investigate. As she opens the door, she's startled by Maxi standing there, sporting a slightly eerie clown mask. The poor woman gasps and then scolds her friend for pranking her like this. Soon they laugh it off and decide to watch a movie together. In the meantime, unbeknownst to them, an evil and mysterious fog encircles the washroom. After the movie ends, Maxi heads back to her house. Outside, she reassures her friend that Federico's demise has nothing to do with her, so she should not be so stressed. Francesca smiles and hugs her friend goodbye. Before getting inside her car, Maxi sees her friend Francesca watching her leave from the window. She looks towards the other window and strangely notices the sofa. It creepily feels as though that non-living thing is watching her. For For a moment she gets distracted by the barks of a neighborhood dog, but when she looks back, in a blink of an eye, the sofa mysteriously disappears. Brushing off her concern, she leaves. Back at the house, Francesca sits on the sofa, gently caressing its arm and feeling a strange sense of comfort. She pushes the button for it to recline, and she gets absorbed in its coziness. Suddenly, she awakens with a gasp, finding herself on the bed in the middle of the night. It seems as though she had just seen herself almost moaning at the relaxing sofa in her dream. Meanwhile, back outside, we see a strange spirit standing behind the sofa. Astonishingly, it looks like the same mysterious girl from the vision of Maxi's grandfather. On the other side, Maxi's grandfather is absorbed in a video about the evil Dybbuk creature. The man in the video warns against ever making physical contact with the creature because it would then establish a deadly connection between it and the host that touches it. He cautions about potential health issues and advises that only the strong-minded and strong-bodied should dare to touch it. As the old man watches the video, we see him groaning in pain and discomfort. He takes pills to ease his pain. It turns out that he has sadly established a connection with the evil entity after touching the sofa, and now his symptoms have started showing. The next morning, Francesca is startled by a noise. She discovers extinguished candles and a prepared breakfast lying on the same sofa. She approaches it and the recliner moves up, making contact with her skin. She merely moves back and does not think much of it. This creepy sofa is hitting on the girl for sure. He is game though, going all out of its way to prepare breakfast and light candle. How romantic. But of course, oblivious Francesca assumes it's TJ's doing. Who can blame her? How could she ever know that it was the sofa? No hard feelings, Mr. Recliner. TJ enters just then and she greets him enthusiastically. She then goes to make him a bowl of cereal. The oblivious TJ happily revels in this moment, and even when he is wrongly credited for the gesture, he accepts it gracefully. He takes a bite from the cookies, but when he goes to pick another one, the sofa sneakily moves away, as if making it clear that the breakfast is only meant for Francesca, not for him. Meanwhile, Inspector Bob receives pictures of items from the crime scene. Among this evidence, he sees strange voodoo dolls with poor Francesca's face on them. Turns out, the man we saw in the beginning of the movie was none other than Federico. Bob calls Francesca for questioning. In his interview with Francesca, he questions her about Federico's involvement in voodoo and his blog. Francesca admits he was into many odd things. Detective Rossan raises concerns about Francesca's well-being. After seeing the picture of the voodoo doll with her face on it, she also notices that Francesca has obtained 5 restraining orders against different men, each associated with a distinct address. When confronted, Francesca explains that the constants in her life are her passion for dancing and her unwavering friendship with Maxi. Thus, she is used to moving around a lot. She also shares with them how men tend to become strangely fixated on her, obsessed even as if she holds a strange influence on them. She tells them upon being questioned that she had romantic relationships with a few of these men, but not all of them. Federico, for instance, desired more than friendship, but she wasn't interested, thus she didn't reciprocate his feelings. She also tells them that the main reason she is in a relationship with her current partner, TJ, is because he seems unaffected by her charm. Her friend Maxi chimes in, saying that it is because he is gay. In the meantime, back at home, TJ is cooking when an alarming event takes place. A sofa menacingly comes charging forward on its own, injuring him in the leg. Back in the station, while the group is looking through Federico's blog, Francesca gets a call from TJ who informs her of the incident. Startled and in a rush, they all race back to Francesca's apartment, only to find the room filled with smoke. TJ is discovered sitting in the bathtub, tending to his wound. His leg has been cut open and he is groaning in pain. Detective Bob rushes to ensure that the oven is turned off. There he sees blood smeared all over the oven's door and looks back to find the sofa resting right behind him. He eyes the sofa with suspicion. Meanwhile, at Maxi's house, his granddad calls his father to consult about the Dybbuk. He tells his father how he also has the same gift but is only met with scorn and ridicule. Poor old man, still getting scolded by his father at his age. Despite his protests, his father tells him to leave the Dybbuk alone since he does not understand. If he dares to intervene, people would get hurt. As if they aren't getting hurt already. Maxi calls Francesca to ask about how TJ is doing. Turns out her boyfriend has been going off about how the sofa is possessed. The girls laugh it off since they do not believe him. Francesca tells Maxi that TJ has gone to his mother's house, which is 3 blocks down. At his mother's place, TJ takes his medicine and finds that there is no water in his glass. He calls out for water from his mother, but as she doesn't respond, he attempts to get out of bed and fetch the jug from the far corner. Just as he drags himself to the corner, he hears a startling tapping on the window. Investigating, he notices the menacing sofa outside, looking up at him. This sofa must have the ability to teleport as well, or else how can it just leisurely walk around? Scared half to death. While he is desperately trying to close the window, he's unexpectedly attacked by a steel wire. This sharp weapon hits his foot and he screams, but despite all the noise and commotion, his mother, donning headphones, remains oblivious. Concurrently, Maxi's grandfather delves deeper into researching about the Dybbuk and discovers its eerie nature. Through a video, he finds that it feeds on the souls of its victims. He learns that while the evil entity is feeding, it should never be interrupted, as the soul has already been taken. At the same time, on the other side, poor TJ is fed upon by the Dybbuk. Now, in a bid to seek clues, the old man and his girlfriend perform a ritual to experience the haunting vision again. The woman tells him to use all his senses and focus more for any potential clues. The man is transported back to the vision where he sees the same girl running through the woods. This time, he finds a flower that the girl abandons amidst her flee. The man picks it up to see yet another vision of the same girl making potion. Soon after, she takes her after getting confronted by 2 other people. After waking up, the man confides in his girlfriend. Turns out that the girl was on the run after poisoning someone. Upon getting surrounded, she preferred to take her. The couple also realizes the urgency to locate the sofa, as it poses grave danger to its possessor. Later that night, Francesca awakens on the sofa, only to find her underwear on the floor and catches a glimpse of a man's reflection in the doorway. Startled, she calls out, but the figure vanishes. She goes around the house and into the washroom. Despite her search, she can't find anyone. As she turns around to leave, after shutting down the bathroom window, she suddenly encounters someone there, but abruptly wakes from this chilling nightmare. Turns out it was all a dream. Then, she starts hearing a creaking noise. It stops and a buzzing noise makes her get out of bed and investigate. As she looks around with a torch, she notices the sofa moving, prompting her to scream in fear. Frantically, she contacts Maxi, who rushes over to find Francesca distressed, sitting on the doorstep outside her house. Turns out, she went to TJ's and rang the doorbell but nobody answered. Maxi puts on a coat over her shoulders and takes her inside her house. Fearful and unwillingly, she follows suit. They go upstairs and watch the sofa that seems to have turned lifeless. Nevertheless, Francesca decides to go home with Maxi since she feels very uneasy here. As the 2 girls go, the sofa ominously watches from the roof. The next morning, while TJ's mother vacuums the house, she calls out to her son. Creaking his door open, she pushes the vacuum inside. Before she proceeds to go in, she discovers something getting sucked inside the vacuum. She unplugs the vacuum and watches in horror at the eyeball that watches back from inside the vacuum cleaner. On the other hand, Francesca returns back home where she stands in the doorway, watching the sofa. In the midst of this, Inspector Bob messages her, summoning her to the police station. As Francesca leaves her house, she encounters a guy named Ralph, who persistently questions her about considering his marriage proposal. She firmly declines, stating her relationship with her boyfriend. Quickly, she departs for the police station, but as soon as she goes, this ridiculous man breaks into her house. At the station, they receive the distressing news of TJ's demise, discovering peculiar letters F and R written on his face. They think he left this message specifically for Francesca. Detective Bob suspects a link between this incident and Federico's demise. Upon scrutinizing Francesca's list of ex-boyfriends, he inquires about whom she believes could be capable of such acts. Francesca circles a particular name. It turns out to be none other than Maxi's cousin Ralph. Meanwhile, Detective Rossen receives results from the forensic lab, uncovering DNA belonging to Warren Lee, an individual with a criminal record. They speculate that this might indicate a collaboration between 2 individuals in these disturbing incidents. Amidst all this, back in Francesca's apartment, in a chilling sequence, Ralph installs cameras. He is completely unaware that the ominous sofa is silently observing his actions. While rummaging through Francesca's wardrobe, he's startled by a noise but then soon brushes off his concerns. Then, this pervert jumps into Francesca's bed and starts fooling around. In a sudden and terrifying turn of events, the sofa approaches the room and using an iron, fatally injures him. On the other hand, Maxi's grandfather continues his search for the address where the sofa was delivered. Turns out, they don't know the name of their granddaughter's friend. The old man thinks she is named Patricia or something. Nevertheless, he decides to call Maxi to warn her about the impending danger. However, her phone is turned off. Meanwhile, the girls go to Francesca's sister's place to stay since it could be dangerous at her own home. As Maxi is about to go, her friend asks her to check on the sofa on her way home. Upon her friend's insistence, she agrees. At the police station, Bob delves into online research while Rossen offers him solace, suggesting he come back to her place. However, their attention is suddenly diverted as Rossen notices the sofa in the background of Federico's video. On the other side, Maxi's grandfather urgently informs Maxi about Francesca's perilous situation, to which Maxi responds, revealing her prior suspicions about the strange nature of the sofa. She decides to go and bring the sofa to her grandpa. Maxi arrives at Francesca's apartment, only to discover Ralph's lifeless body on the balcony. As she watches in horror, the menacing sofa drags the body away and hurls it over the edge. Terrified, Maxi accidentally makes a noise, alerting the sofa. She hurriedly locks herself in the bathroom after dropping her keys outside. Desperately, she climbs out of the window as the sofa attempts to gain entry. In the struggle, she falls into a nearby dumpster, rendered unconscious. Meanwhile, at her sister's place, Francesca hears a peculiar sound. Anxious, she takes some tablets before heading to the kitchen, where she hears the sofa seemingly whispering the name Valerie through the drains. Bending closer to investigate, she's startled by the unexpected arrival of the inspector. Francesca, unnerved, claims she's hearing things. Inspector Rossen takes away the tablets while Francesca expresses her concern for Maxi's safety. Worried about her friend, they head to Francesca's apartment. There, they find her keys and attempt to reach her. As Francesca calls her, the inspectors hear Maxi's phone from outside, below the balcony. They go down to search where they discover Ralph's body. When Francesca turns around, she sees the sofa seemingly muttering Valerie. Stricken with fear, she screams and rushes into Max's car, speeding away. The next morning, while Francesca is standing on the edge of a cliff, she receives a call from Maxi's grandfather. He asks her to meet him to discuss the haunting occurrences. As they meet, he delves into the history of Dybbuk. When Francesca asks why she's encountering apparitions, he explains that sometimes fragments of souls linger in the world. Francesca inquires about the name Valerie, prompting Maxi's grandfather to recall a couple named Valerie and Gerard who practiced witchcraft in the 1800s. Turns out the woman that he saw visions of was none other than Valerie. They utilized a poison plan on their victims. Valerie took in front of a woman named Marie, who happens to be Francesca's great-grandmother. After this incident, the woman started having hallucinations and realized that she had been possessed by Valerie's spirit. Valerie possessed the ability to evoke obsessive devotion from those she encountered. Thus, with her spirit inside Marie, she became the center of fights with everyone wanting her attention. This led her to isolate. Francesca is alarmed, realizing this mirrors her own experiences. Maxi's grandfather explains that malevolent entities can traverse through generations, particularly within the same family. Francesca has been significantly impacted by the presence of Gerard, now residing within the sofa. However, a Dybbuk requires a human host to attach itself. If Valerie is linked to Francesca, then Gerard should have been associated with Federico, who is deceased. Maxi's grandfather plans to seal the Dybbuks in 2 specifically crafted boxes and set them ablaze to sever the malevolent connection. Meanwhile, at home, Inspector Bob is interrupted during exercise when he receives a message about Warren Lee being in the interrogation room. Notably, Francesca's picture is displayed on the laptop screen in front of him. Turns out, he has also been bewitched by the Dybbuk. On the other hand, Detective Rossin longingly looks at a picture of Bob in her car. Meanwhile, Francesca falls into a trance. She envisions Maxi's grandfather playing a pipe, accompanied by the sofa emitting smoke from its mouth. In a disturbing turn of events, Valerie appears behind Francesca, placing a knife in her hand. Terrified, Francesca screams and abruptly awakens to find the old man in distress. She grabs the box and rushes for help. On the other hand, Inspector Bob questions Warren about Federico's demise. Warren admits Federico asked him to cut his legs off for him but doesn't understand why. He did as he asked and stitched up his legs along with giving him some medicine. He left after thinking that Federico would seek medical help. The inspector urges Warren to lead him to Federico's body, but Warren confesses he doesn't know its location. Eventually, he reveals Federico's unsettling request to be buried inside a sofa. Simultaneously, Detective Rossin investigates at Ralph's house, uncovering camera footage from Francesca's apartment. Horrified by witnessing the sofa's movement, she hastily flees from the scene. Back at Francesca's home, the poor girl confronts the sofa, demanding it to enter the box. She douses it with petrol, threatening to set it ablaze, but the sofa extinguishes the match each time. To Francesca's shock, the sofa rises and advances toward her. As the sofa menacingly approaches, Inspector Bob arrives and opens fire. To everyone's surprise, Federico emerges from inside the sofa, prompting Bob to shoot him on the spot. Following the intense confrontation, Francesca runs away to take her tablets. Unexpectedly, Valerie grabs at Francesca from a nearby closet in the washroom and properly possesses the woman. Outside, Detective Rossin tries to enter but is reassured by Francesca that she's fine. Maxi also emerges from the dumpster and finally joins them upstairs, and Francesca assures her that the ordeal is finally over. However, in the nearby mirror, we can see the girl wearing an evil smile. In a later scene, we see Bob in Francesca's apartment where she reveals that she's kept the sofa. She serves Inspector Bob some tea containing a flower, dressed alluringly. Simultaneously, Inspector Rossin receives a call from the mortuary, informing her that Federico's body has been decomposing for at least 2 weeks. Meanwhile, Maxi's grandfather is being cared for by his girlfriend, possibly recuperating from the distressing events. Meanwhile, back at home, Maxi researches the Dybbuk further. She finds out that it may also use the human carcass to store souls after its demise. Once the carcass becomes unusable, then it can be transferred to the nearest object till a new host can be found. Amidst this, we see Inspector Bob finishing his tea and simultaneously getting possessed by the Dybbuk and becoming the new host. Right that moment, Rossin arrives and enters the apartment as the possession completes. She is attacked by Francesca from behind and is taken care of for good by Bob. All this is witnessed by poor Maxi from outside. She sees Bob commit the deed and then leave with Francesca. As they disappear from her sight, she rushes upstairs to see Rossin's body. There, she calls the emergency services, but as she looks around, to her dread, the sofa moves. She looks closely into its button eye and watches an apparition of her dear friend Francesca falling.